What's going on, my curious and intellectual people? Welcome back to another episode with intrigue and insights, with deep conversations meet everyday life, looking beyond the obvious to uncovering meaning, challenge assumption, and find wisdom in places most people overlook. Now, in our last episode, I introduced us to this new phase we're stepping into: faith under pressure. Now, in there, we came to the conclusion that when survival ends is when we become mature. And we discussed the topic. This is why faith feels empty for some people. Now, what if survival mode has ended, but God still feels distant? Well, if you feel like God is far away from you, you're not alone. So, let us unpack some reasons behind this type of experience. God's silence doesn't mean absent. When there is a lack of response or visible action, does not signify God is gone, uncaring, or inactive. Faith, like life, moves in seasons. Just like we have 4 different seasons that we go through every year: winter, summer, fall, and spring. There are seasons in life, but that's way more than 4. So, in Ecclesiastes 3, matter of fact, I'm going to go to it and read it. Thank God for technology, though. I don't have my little pocket Bible, that little sword I used to always carry. Give me a moment. Pull it up. So, in Ecclesiastes 3, verse 1, this is the Holman Christian Standard Bible. That's my preference. It's very close to the original languages, but yet modern for us to be able to understand it according to the way we speak now. So, verse 1 is, there is an occasion for everything and a time for every activity under heaven. Verse 2, a time to give birth and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build. Verse 4, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance. Verse 5, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to avoid embracing. Verse 6, a time to search and a time to count as loss, a time to keep and a time to throw away. 7, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to be silent and a time to speak. Verse 8, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. So, in Ecclesiastes, this is written by Solomon, one of the wisest men of his time. He was a king, but he wrote this in his book. It shows and identifies different seasons of life that God gives us. And we have to take that into consideration when we're thinking about our faith. There are times when God feels very near, comforting, and clear. Then there's times when God feels silent and distant. There will be times where there is a lack of immediate answers, feelings of spiritual dryness, and unanswered prayers. But this does not indicate that God has abandoned or forgotten us. It isn't unusual. Spiritual dryness has been a part of faith stories all through history. This silence often signifies that He is working behind the scenes, preparing us, building our faith, or aligning circumstances for the greater purpose. This is the time that we can be listening and processing deeply rather than reacting. This is the perfect time that we can sit quietly and gather our thoughts, because noise crowds intimacy. Loud sounds or intense environmental, visual, or emotional input overpowers the mental and physical capacity to be able to connect with God. Our brain cannot filter out the surrounding chaos, leading to anxiety, irritability, or complete shutdown. Now, complete shutdown, that's my thing. When my brain is being overloaded with chaos, I will shut down completely. Determining on the situation and the circumstance, when I shut down, my brain actually starts mapping out strategies and ways in order for me to achieve what is trying to be accomplished. But if it's not beneficial and worth it, I'm just going to shut down and withdraw. With so much happening in this world today, it is difficult to focus on our relationship with God, causing intimacy to feel stressful and exhausting rather than comforting. Distance is often distractions. When we allow physical, emotional, and mental spaces to grow between ourselves and our goals, relationships, and values, that gap becomes filled with distractions that takes us off course. This distance from God often isn't Him withdrawing, but about distractions pulling our attention away. Life's busyness, worries, fears, and noise can cloud our spiritual awareness. Distractions act like static from a radio signal. God's voice is still there, but it's harder to hear Him clearly. Spiritual distance can be a call for us to evaluate what's occupying our hearts and our minds. We ask ourselves, am I too caught up with stress, technology, and distractions that keep me from noticing God's presence? And sometimes God feels distant because we're called to grow in patience, humility, and trust. But it's our responsibility to evaluate what season we're currently in. But God is found in stillness, not volume. A deeper experience with God is often accessed through quiet and contemplated reading rather than chaotic and bustling activity. Stillness creates an environment where we can truly listen and be receptive. It's in moments of silence, calm, and solitude that many experience clarity. So, this means that seeking God isn't about raising the volume of our prayer or seeking a dramatic sign. Instead, it's about cultivating inner quietness, pausing the rush, calming the mind, and opening the heart. In stillness is where we become aware of His presence that's always been there beneath the noise. This invites us to slow down intentionally, create a space for God to speak, and to find comfort in the gentle assurance of His presence. Because loud lives struggle to hear quiet truth. Remember, Clarity doesn't come from easy answers, but from the courage to ask the hard ones. So stay curious, stay open, and keep looking deeper. Peace.